any kind of schoolwork. If I was in the astrology club, which I was, and I loved any of the art pieces, I would spend hours and hours doing in middle school and elementary school to make it perfect, make my vision come to life. And so that's kind of how it looked in college athletics, where it was athletics and academics were at the forefront. Like, how far can I push myself?
What year was this?
So I graduated in 2005 from Iowa State.
Well, you went to Iowa State.
Yes.
I'm trying to think who was over there, who was playing. Can you give us a little bit of rundown of the people you're playing with?
Well, back then, one of the biggest things back then is that it was before all of the conference changes, So it was in the Big 12 conference where we played Oklahoma and Colorado and Nebraska, Texas A&M, all these different schools that were, the cream of the crop for women's basketball. So, it was just nonstop competition, really great athletics. And then after I graduated, that's kind of when all of the shakeups of the different conferences happened, where a couple of the universities went to the Pac-10 and the Big 10 and SEC. And now every year they're always changing, or some with basketball, men's basketball, some with football. So it's hard to keep up, but it's a lot of fun. But yeah, I played with some great players, and just the conference was top notch. So it was a lot of fun.
I love that you say that. So who would you say was the hardest competition to guard on that court around that time?
Oh man, we had, there's so many good players. I will tell you, so one of the funny things is, before I went to Iowa State, I went to a year at the University of Illinois. And that year, so I was a freshman at the University of Illinois. It was an incredible program because they had gone to the NCAA tournament the year before. Our signing group, so all of the freshmen and transfers coming in, we were the second best recruiting class in the nation. And there were no seniors. So we really had an upside of like a ton of potential. But I got to tell you, wow, they had that schedule was so stacked. So we played Tennessee in a Maui Classic. We played UConn, we played Georgia, just some of the top overall women's basketball programs, Clemson. So the non-conference schedule was so hard. And then you got into, just playing the Big 10 at that time. And, that was still tough. So, I mean, back then when I played against Sue Bird and, Shea Ralph and Michelle Snow from Tennessee, I just, Kara Lawson from Tennessee was playing at the time. So I remember some of those names because they're still staples in women's basketball, whether they're coaching or, still, finishing up playing. It was just a completely memorable experience. But yeah, that freshman year really kind of got you acclimated very quickly into college athletics, for sure.
No, I do love that. And then transitioning to the WNBA, I feel like that was a big highlight for yourself also too, no?
Yeah, it's an interesting story, Rory. Of course there's a lot of adversities, right? When you're an athlete or when you're just trying to push yourself to be the best. And so you heard that I went to the University of Illinois, but I transferred after that freshman season. I still made the all Big 10 freshman team. So I had a pretty good year. But one thing that I talk about a lot, because it was actually one of the biggest adversities and kind of mindset things that I was able to create from this experience, was I wasn't able to shoot a 3-point shot. And the coaching staff wanted to make me more into a set shooter. And I was used to being a jump shooter, like getting off the floor, having air underneath my feet from behind that 3-point line. And it just didn't work. So I had practiced, 10 years all through high school, every night, shooting millions of shots, how it is in the gym. And I just couldn't figure out the mechanics. Like, there was no flow between my legs being able to jump and then my shooting. So I would be behind the 3-point line, airballing and left and right, like could not hit the rim or could not hit the backboard. It was like I could have taken a baseball throw at it and I would have been a better shot for me. So I just was like, I don't know. I couldn't figure it out. But I remember being in this back gym at Illinois when I knew I was transferring, and I said, I couldn't hit the rim. And I said, somehow I'm going to figure out this shot, and I'm going to be in the ESPN 3-point shootout contest one day. And it was a really big moment because, it was just me by myself, because I literally made like 4 3-pointers for a guard out of like 30 some games. So that's, I really wasn't shooting. I just couldn't. So I transferred to Iowa State. I had to sit out. That's back when you had to do that sit out year. I ended up tearing my ACL, which is a knee injury, and it usually takes at least a year to kind of recover and get back into the same shape and same kind of athleticism that you were at that time. So didn't have a couple of good years. I just was slow. I was wearing that huge chunky knee brace and still kind of had this broke 3-point shot. But I'll tell you, I got up to my junior and senior year, and the moment came where it was time for me to fix this shot. And it was actually one of my favorite coaches of all time. He still coaches at Oklahoma State University. His name's Jack Easley. And he just had this way about him that he would say something very subtle, but you knew like kind of it was the truth. And he's like, I was shooting free throws and I was just okay at shooting free throws. And he's like, that's just not going to cut it. And then he walked right off, didn't make any more deal about it. And I was like, I grabbed my ball and I took a deep breath and I went under the rim and I started shooting one-handed. And I was like, I'm going to fix this, but I'm going to start back at the basics. So I did that my junior year. I ended up like 88% leading the Big 12 conference, leading Iowa State. This is all going to get back to your WNBA question. So that senior year was like, this works for my free throw. Let me try it from the 3-point line. So I went back under the rim, shooting like I was 5 and 6 years old again, shooting one-handed. And I kept going, a foot back at a time. And, getting that alignment, just the basics of shooting a basketball. And that senior season, I ended up leading the nation for a few weeks in 3-point shooting. And I, was able to just be such more of a dynamic player for our team. We had all the right pieces of the team, the players, all those types of things that really worked for us to get to the NCAA tournament. I had a pretty good season, again, because of that fixed 3-point shot. I was able to move around the court a lot better. And I never had even set my sights on the WNBA. And then I got drafted. So I was just sitting at a football scrimmage and somebody said, you got drafted. So it wasn't like this cool,
Wow.
Yeah, it wasn't like this cool New York City, awesome wardrobe story by any means. I didn't even know. And it was just because of that incredible journey that I had taken throughout, getting back to the basics with my shot, kind of having a great senior year for our team, myself, and, it all worked out. And I didn't even tell you the awesome thing about it is one of the final games that senior season, they came over and they're like, hey, you got invited to the ESPN 3-point shootout. And no one knew that was in the back of my mind if I could fix this three. And so that was a really cool moment. So I got to go to the men's Final Four in St. Louis and got to hang out with JJ Redick, from Duke, even at the 3-point shooting. And he was like one of my idols to watch play. So it was, a lot of fun little, moments like that weren't expected, but, taking, the step back, shifting a mindset, going back to the basics and just kind of saying, hey, this isn't working, but let's just go back to the start and see what we can create. And that just opened up so many doors for me. So WNBA, had no idea. It wasn't on the radar for me until that moment happened. And I was able to, go to the Sacramento Monarchs. So it was pretty a fun journey for sure from that senior year through the time with the WNBA.
I love this. Man.
I know. It was I was like, hey, we're going to circle around here. But it was a cool story because WNBA, usually you always have your eyes set on that. And I was like, I just got to fix this shot. I couldn't think of anything else besides getting this shot better. And our team up until that point at Iowa State hadn't been to the NCAA tournament for 2 years. And I was like, we had NCAA or bust written on our sneakers. I had them on my sneakers and I was like, we have to make this the NCAA tournament this year. So that was the main focus. Yes. And fixing the shot.
I love this. And it shows and it speaks to overcoming adversity, injuries, you talk about the jump shot. So with everything that you've learned in college, WNBA, how does it now correlate to you as a person, into your business, into your endeavors and things like that?
Oh, it's almost like a foundation. I have, that mindset of back to the basics is one that I use all the time. And there's so many others, but one of the things that I think about, from even performance, because when I tore my ACL, when you're used to running and jumping like a real athlete, and they were like, just flex your quad muscle for the first 2 weeks. So you're again going back to the basics just to fix your knee. So very small things, but that over time, if you do small things, they will add up. And just in my regular life, that's something I continuously remind myself up. Instead of beating myself up that I didn't get an hour workout in, if I still take the time to make sure I get 10 or 15 minutes in, whether it's a walk or a quick lift, I'm like, we're still doing something. It's still moving us forward. And even for me during those times of working out now, I love like trying to be fit and, exercising and sweating, just like I was an athlete, but now it's so much more for my mental health. I feel like it sets the mindset and the trajectory for my day. So I feel like the lessons I learned, the discipline I learned, the drive that I had during, the academics throughout college and setting my athletic goals so high, it just transferred into what I wanted to do for my career and how I run my day, So it's like getting up again at 5 before the sun comes up and setting out all the, mindset things that I want to work on, the to-do lists, and then getting my workout in to be able to kind of set myself on a positive trajectory before the rest of the world wakes up. So it's honestly just shifted a little bit. Like I don't necessarily go and work on that 3-point shot anymore, but it's a different way that still helps, my personal day and throughout my career. And I don't know if you know this, that because it's sometimes for your listeners, oh man, when you look at somebody's social media or LinkedIn, either website, it shows all the great stuff. Like you just heard about, ESPN or WNBA. If you do a quick thing, you'll see that. But it doesn't talk about, not being able to shoot or in the gym, crying because I couldn't be able to shoot or having a torn knee. And I think that's the same with life too. And it's just one of those things I want to make sure I'm at least talking about a little bit more. Is one of the things that happened to me was I lost my job during the pandemic. I was a part of a consulting firm that, at that time, businesses weren't paying $100,000 and $200,000 for consulting firms. And so although I really loved the work we were doing and we had a huge impact, it just wasn't sustainable for the business. So they had to let go of about 75% of our team. And that's rough when you get let go and you're not really expecting that, or what's next. And the one thing I was able to shift into for myself during that time was really like focusing on what's possible for the future in front of me. Because a lot of times we look at the things from the past and we look at, woe is me, or I should have seen that, or that person, I'm so mad at that thing, and it's okay to be in that space for a little bit, but really kind of seeing like there is a line in the sand of that thing happening and what is possible to create. And that is probably one of the biggest things that I've been able to hold on to as a mindset of really kind of creating that blank slate of a future. And one of my favorite quotes is, what's the best that can happen? Like you just never know. Usually we look at what's the worst that can happen, or this has happened to me before, or, that bad thing could happen. No, but what we really got to focus on, what's the best thing that can happen? And then once you start writing and you start thinking, it's so crazy how your mind and creativity start expanding on this positive opportunity that could be available for you. And so I really focused on that when I shut my computer down after that Zoom meeting where we got let go. And I said, this could be the best thing for me. And it might take some chess pieces of me doing some inner work, which is like, what feels warm? Where do I feel called towards? Where do I want to be in that 2 to 3 to 5 years? We call that reverse engineering, whether you're in athletics or you're in business. So you set your date out there and it's like, how do I get to that date of what that looks like? So that's been profound for me. I was able to create that with, a big consulting advisory role within an industry I was really intrigued by and interested in, which is a cybersecurity industry. And we all know that we need that a little bit more. So
a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. Even on this recording. So yeah, it's just really interesting. It's one of those things that I love talking about because our brains are so trained to come from the past or worry about that survival of many things, whether it's survival of friends and family or survival of, the next job or what that looks like. And we can really snowball into that. I do it plenty of times, but I'm trying to get, my mindset down to catch myself at any time. And I stop and I say, now wait, what's the best that can happen? And what can I create on this blank slate here? So that's what I was able to do after basketball and, continue to try to do with my career. And hopefully maybe some of your listeners can take that away too.
No, it just goes into a lot. It's a lot of like what I talk about, finding the ability to be 1% better. And then what does that look like? You know, making, you know, how do I say it? Peace with your past also too. To set yourself up for the future. And then you speak about creating, you know what I mean? You speak about things about looking at like things on the chessboard, and chess is probably one of the most ultimate games to the measure of life, right?
Yes.
Because there's certain pieces that you got to know how to move. If you play chess, people will know that, you know,
Right.
the audience and things like that. So have you played chess yourself?
Yes, I have. And I love exactly where you're going with it, where it's like, oh, each piece has a certain move, and how do they all work together to accomplish the same goal? So it's, I absolutely love it. No, I'm not very good, but I love learning it and kind of just keep discovering it.
You're not very good. So you're saying that you lose to chess against me? Is that a challenge?
Oh my gosh. Okay. Next recording. It's on. But one thing about me, I'm a big studier. I will study and start watching all the moves. So I'll be down on YouTube watching all the different chess moves.
Oh, you're going to go to the YouTube. Okay. I like that. So how do you impact creating with everything you've known so far? And you speak about, you know, getting let go from your job, pandemic, things like that. What are you doing for yourself now that lets you bring you back into that mindset of overcoming that adversity? Because things happened, right?
Right.
Life happened. The pandemic happened. We're out of pandemic, but I feel like some people are still mentally in pandemic because they weren't working hard, right? My mentor always said is, all men are created equal. Some work harder in preseason. Right?
Oh, I love that. I love that quote. Yes, that's right.
You see what I'm saying? So with that being said, how do you continuously make it your preseason and things like that?
This is such a great question. I was just thinking of what I did back when I was an athlete. And it's so interesting because I've talked about this a time or two with other athletes, and how do you come back from a bad game, or the newspaper, the social media is writing that you had a really bad game, and how do you get back? And back then it almost seems like it was a more zeroed in focused solution than it is when it comes to life, because the best thing you had to do when you were an athlete, if you had a bad game or something was off, the only thing you had to do is pick up your sneakers and your ball and go start working on that all over again. And eventually, even just the practice of going back in the gym and starting to focus somehow would kind of push that bad game out, and your focus was the next game because you only had 2 days, 3 days, 4 days until that next game. And so I do try to hone in on that, because it seemed like there was only like two choices: go back to the gym, get ready for the next game, or just sulk. And it was like, okay, go. Like, you had to go. And so life, sometimes when it feels like there's so many different moving pieces and parts, what I do, instead of picking up my basketball, is I will pick up my headphones and I'll pick up my sneakers and I'll drive to the beach. I live down in South Florida, y'all. I'm from Iowa originally, but I live in Miami. And the thing that has showed up, the biggest thing for me that basketball showed, was that it was actually an inner game that I was playing this whole time, like that 3-point shot, all of that stuff. You would see it on the court, but the way that I would feel was I was in a state of flow when I was playing. I wasn't overthinking things. I wasn't in my head like, should I dribble? Should I not? Should I shoot? Should I not? No, you're just in and you're being and playing it. They call that ontology, the study of being. And you just were that. And so when life throws me things like, just a bad day at work, that happens too, or I just don't feel well, from all the different illnesses going on, or, you get bad news one way or another, like losing your job. It's the one thing that I know how to get back to is get back into the inner work. And so for me, what's shown up in the last probably, 5 to 8 years, that's made such a big impact for me, is like a walking meditation or meditative work, or listening to things on repeat that take me out of my own self-talk and really settle down that, negative self-talk, like you said, just the past of worrying about that. And somehow for me as a former athlete, anytime I'm moving, like in a walking meditation, since my body's moving, it knows how to flow. It's very quick for me to get into a flow meditative state. And so the inner work is number one that gets me back on track. And I think you asked about the creative state, like how do I get back into creating? And that's one of the things. And I'll give you one of my amazing life hacks. Also, everyone listening out there, because when I am doing that walking meditation, social media, man, again, you can find so much on there. But one thing I started doing the last couple of years is I created an album in my phone. That's my Future Ian album, your picture in your photos. So anything that I absolutely love, or when I felt alive, or when I see something else that's like just living and breathing excitement, joy, motivation. Like I have a Lizzo picture in there, like, like that's just like inspiring, I mean, I have, the sunsets and whatever that looks like, or a couple of times when I knew that I was feeling really on in some of my work and performance that I've been doing, or when I was volunteering in Bali, like those photos are in there because I knew that like that was in my vibe where I wanted to be. And so in those photos, I'll scroll through those before I go to sleep instead of Instagram, because that can get down and then your brain is all over the place. But I start looking at those photos. I'll do it in the morning, and then I'll tell you when I'm out on that walking meditation or just out in a walk in general, and my mind starts going to the negativity or all the things that I have to do, or all the things that are happening in the world, I'll start flashing those pictures in my brain, and I will like start to calm down a little bit more. And again, the whole point of that is that you're focused on the future feelings that you want to be, the future you that you're creating at that moment, instead of living from the past or the negativity that literally can surround us quite a bit. So there was a lot of different tangents, but a lot of creativity is created through that inner work. It's still visualization, just like when you're a 12-year-old and you have pictures of Michael Jordan or whoever all over. It's similar to that. Just now you have it in your pocket and you can take it out and go with you. So
I love that. I like that breakdown. It's,
yeah.
it's I always say is like find things that are going to motivate you, right?
Yes.
Because internal motivation is within, and I've always said is like with me, when it looks like when I went to go find my mentor going through the times, I had to go inward. Not a lot of people want to go inward.
No, Rory, I don't know who your mentor is. Who's your mentor? Or is that somebody you share?
Dr. Eric Thomas. Are you familiar with him?
I don't think so. Okay, because I know that you're good vibes, high energy, and I was like, okay, I better check out that person. But I gotta check out.
Who rubbed you the wrong way?
Hey, you never know. Everybody has their moments, but yes, I just wanted to see, because I always want to add those people, because I think people or quotes or books, I might not need to know all of it. I just need to take a few things for myself and take it. I think there's a quote that's like, you take the meat and leave the bones. So in any experience or interaction I've had, I'm like, whatever is good that I can take and it's going to work for me, make it work for you. And then, leave the rest, just like this podcast. So hopefully they take one little thing out of it.
They got to. They have no choice. It's 1% better.
1% better. Right on. Wait, I totally interrupted you. What was the inner work that you said you had to find him?
So that was many, many moons ago. It was going through a breakup. That's how it always starts. You know what I mean?
Those are rough. Yes, we didn't even mention that.
Well, it is what it is. I do talk about relationships here and there on the episodes, different perspective. You got to give them some seasoning, some spice.
Oh, yeah.
But that was like 2009. And one of my best friends said it again last night. We were in a conversation, voice noting back and forth. He goes, the reason why he made the pros and cons list had to deal with something that he was doing at a younger age, right? In dating. And it was like, he passed that down to me, and I had to use that same list of things, those tangibles. Oh my gosh. So I went going into the gym, Dr. Eric Thomas, E.T. the hip hop preacher. That's his social media.
Yes. Okay.
Right. And I just continue to keep just going, regurgitating it in my ear, in my headphones.
Yes.
Right. Doesn't matter what I was doing. I was in the lunchroom working for Apple at the time. And that's all I'd be listening to. 1 month. No music. Just him. And it's kind of like now I'm back in that same flow state, like you mentioned.
Yes.
I'm not really listening to a lot of music. And when I do, it's more audiobooks now. Right?
Oh my gosh. Yes.
Because you get a different perspective when you're listening to words and you're working. It's not that I need the motivation, but it could be just listening to an audiobook of, let's just say, David Goggins. You know what I mean?
Oh my gosh. I was just going to say David Goggins for the last 3 weeks. I finished both of his books on Audible. I was
Look at
literally
you.
going to say that is wild. Yes. That's also like 4:35 a.m. wake ups because I was like, I got to get going here. Yeah. When I'm biking in the gym, I've only been listening to him for like the last 3 weeks. So crazy.
There you go. I love that.
It's so good. He's also in
we're
my.
in sync. We're in
he's
sync.
Yes. He's also in my movie pictures of where I'm headed, where I want to go.
I love that. I love that. So with me, it's just like, and I say this to everybody, is like, just find something, right? What doesn't matter where you come from. If you come from the corporate world, if you come from the content curation world, you come from the coaching world, whatever it is, right? I know some people have different ways of now thinking because there's some people that don't want to be in the corporate world anymore because they realize at the end of the day, it's like, what am I going to be able to do what it is I want to do, right?
Yes.
And I hear 2 authors have said this, Grant Cardone being one,
Yeah.
and Richard Cooper, another one as an author. Now, they both said is opportunity to make your first million by the age of 40.
Oh my gosh.
Right?
Right on. Yes.
You ask this question to yourself and you say is, well, okay, why didn't we never get this information when we were in our early 20s? It's always when we're in our 30s, when we're maximizing our full potential, when we're fully seasoned. You know what I mean? Like I like to say Salt Bay. You know what I mean? The man that's seasoned, the snakes and stuff like that. So for me, it's just like always forward thinking. Yeah, maybe you don't make your first million when you're 40, but maybe make that first million when you're 50.
Right.
60.
Yes.
You know?
Yes, and you always have that vision for yourself. So it's just like the books that you're saying too. I said I listened to meditation, but I listened to those books, and I think there's something that is listening subconsciously to that. You know, obviously we're conscious and we're listening to those words and we're thinking, man, I should go get that workout, or I should listen to that next book or that next podcast, you know, because, you know, you said that, so I'm going to go like look them up. But, man, I just heard a great stat the other day that was like our conscious mind can get 50 bits per second of information, and our subconscious mind gets 11 million bits per second for the subconscious mind. So there is so much information that we're taking in that we might not know, but I think when we're listening to those books, like other things are kind of shifting and moving that we might not be aware of just by being in the present and you know, you're like, I've got to go lift, you know, you're in doing that, listening to that book. And so I just think that's so interesting. Like we might not even be aware of that walk, that 10-minute thing, that, you know, 15-minute podcast we're listening to, and how it might just shift one little thing for us as we go throughout our day, and then towards our $1 million by 40, so, or 50 or 60. So there you go.
Of course. So hard switch, hard transition, because I see you have the podcast get up, you got the headphones, you got the mic. I like the filter that you have on the mic there.
Thank you. I do have like 14, like 15 different colors, so it depends on the mood. But yeah, I like the Miami. It's like a Miami teal, you know, the ocean teal. So it's kind of one of my fave colors.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So you got a podcast out there, I hear.
Yes. Yeah. I started the Get Busy Living podcast. That's what it's called.
Before you get into this powerful content and this conversation, I need you all to do me a favor. Hit that subscribe button on the channel, because that's the best way you're going to stay up to date with everything that's going on. Like, share, comment, review, and let me know what's going on, people.
Right. Okay. So I created this podcast. It's called Get Busy Living. It was about a little over a year ago. And it's from the movie Shawshank Redemption, which is old school, but he says in the movie, you either get busy living or you get busy dying. And he chooses to get busy living. And so it was just kind of a family thing where my dad and I would text back and forth, and he'd be like, "Are you GBLing?" And I'm like, "Are you GBLing?" So it's just one of those things like YOLO, or just kind of something that's a good vibe. Like you kind of do have those choices. Again, you know, we've talked a lot about growth mindset. Like that's get busy living. Like let's go get that thing and go create something new than living from the past. So that's the podcast name, Get Busy Living, with Ann O'Neill. The three pillars I have are good vibes, which, it's kind of got some fun, upbeat music. But we have people from all walks of life that come on. So even one of the psychologists I was talking to, brought up depression and things like that. But we were still able to create a great conversation because part of dealing with that stuff is how you can set your mindset and get back to having the good vibes out there. So it's good vibes, growth mindset, and then giving back. And so each podcast guest comes on and shares about a nonprofit that inspires them to be bigger than themselves. So that's also one of the main taglines, but that's part of the thing because social media, we see a lot of them, doing work or their books or, their triathlons or things of that nature, but we don't necessarily see all of the work or maybe who they support and why they support some of these nonprofits. So it's been really eye-opening and cool to see some of these nonprofits being shared. And one of them was If Not For Them, which was for women's basketball. It was the 50 years before Title IX, or actually even, kind of was sanctioned for women's basketball. It was really, really cool to see. And one of the things that ended up happening just out of that is I'm not very big on Twitter, but I retweeted the If Not For Them and tagged Billie Jean King at the 50th, for the 50th anniversary of Title IX. And she ended up following, that account. So she was, possibly being able to support that. And it's just so cool to see, you never know what ripple is going to make out there in the world and what people are inspired by and what you actually might be inspired by just listening or finding out about something new. So, so that's my podcast, Get Busy Living. And you can find that on Spotify, Apple, all the different fun places.
I love that. I love that. Another podcaster, you know what I mean?
Another podcaster. I mean, it's part of the thing. I love talking to people. I love asking questions. I love, like I said, finding out, different mindsets. One of the things I'm always interested is, no matter how much you research someone, you still find out new perspectives and new stories, and obviously they're new nonprofits. So it's been a fun way to do that. Hopefully do a little bit more video, and you never know what's possible. Once you kind of start your path on one thing, your creative juices do start flowing a lot more. So even starting a podcast, or if you're a writer and you want to blog, you just never know what door might open up as you kind of start creating, and that kind of blossoms as you go forward.
It goes with your passion, though, right? Yeah. I always feel the passion is the biggest thing. And for me, I didn't have no fancy schooling when it comes to radio broadcasting, but it was the years that I put in as the reps. Right? It's the repetition. And just continuously, upgrading different mics, finding my tonality, finding my speech, finding out what topics are good, which topics are not good, and just keep continuously, just pouring in. Because I think that you need to have different perspectives in this podcasting world. You don't necessarily have to be in a niche. You got some people that put themselves in a box, and then they stay in that box. But then eventually it's like, you got to be able to know how to ebbs and flows with different topics and discussions.
Right. I definitely agree with you because, with even, I have 18 episodes, I think, right now. And everyone's so dynamic and different, but you never know what's going to be interesting to one person out there. And I always said if it was worth it for one person to have an impact out of it, it would be worth, having the conversation and creating the show. So that's the way I've always looked at it. Just like when I played basketball, and some of these are in a little bit of the episodes, but I was like, well, you never know who drove all this way just to watch this game. Maybe they've never seen a game before. And so sometimes taking that perspective kind of gets you out of your own way and just starting to create, because you never know what kind of impact it can have.
What was the biggest area of feedback you got on or off the court?
On or off the court? Oh, man. It's been a minute. Area of feedback. I would say probably one of my biggest things was really being able to see the full court or see the full game and not just get so stuck on one play or, one thing. So it's like they call it athletic IQ, where you're taking the whole and you're seeing it. You're seeing the whole umbrella unfold. And so not getting too stuck on one game. But my mindset was so big on that, where And I have to give so much credit to our coach, Bill Fenley, who's still at Iowa State Cyclones, and they are doing phenomenal. They're in the top 15, top 10 women's basketball if you follow them. And also one of the coolest things about that program is they average like 10 to 15,000 fans, which is huge for women's basketball. So the community is so fun to be able to play in front of. And one of the things that was so good is our game prep. It wasn't just we play this way all the time. It was always specific to who we were playing against by each player. It was so strategic. And that really worked for me because I was somebody who really would understand the different players, their dynamics, and then all of our players and our dynamics, and really kind of moving forward with that mindset of, okay, it's not just this play if we airball a shot or if I have a turnover, because there are many of those, but really seeing the game in a broad perspective, and then really being able to read kind of the plays before they unfold. And again, that athletic IQ is what they call it. But there is just something about it when you've played for so long and you're picking up your teammates, and they're going to make the shot before you even pass it to them. And there was so many moments like that, as the play was developing, that you'd see, all right, this is a 3-pointer. We already know that my friend and teammate's going to make that shot. So I guess I'd say that was probably one of the biggest things as a leader, as a point guard and shooting guard on the team, that you could see the dynamics as a whole and not just an individual player. It was, how do we all kind of move, again, like chess, how do we all move together with our unique skills and abilities against, a different opponent every game?
Makes sense. So you already know we're coming to that part of the podcast where I ask the guest that question.
Okay.
The 1% better. How do you become 1% better? It's always a different ending. It's always a different way. It's always different.
Oh my gosh.
And the question is, how do we become 1% better?
Oh gosh, have we not answered this by so many different ways on so far on the show so far? No, there's so many. I just have so many different answers that look like the 1% better. But I think I'll go off of this one. I think the perspective, the growth mindset of what's the best that can happen is the way to get 1% better, because it's the same as getting up at 5 a.m. and not wanting to work out. But it's like, what's the best that could happen? Maybe you'll listen to David Goggins, or you'll listen to someone on the Audible, and your set will shift for that day. Or maybe you'll have a great set, in the gym, or maybe you'll meet someone new in the gym. You have to just kind of think, what's the best that can happen? And that can be the 1%, because that person in the gym who's working out at 5 a.m. with you might be your next podcast guest, or your next, best friend to go start training for a triathlon. And you just never know what can happen. And that's my way to stay 1% better, is what's the best that can happen when I'm feeling, down in the dumps or whatever it is. But I'll look at that quote. I'll think of that quote, whether it's a meeting, whether it's, again, usually kind of hard stuff that you maybe don't want to do, or a family get together that we just got through all the, holidays with. But really taking that perspective, it does start just showing up differently for yourself, and other things start showing up. Like that book might show up differently. A podcast, that quote, you might get that one quote you've always been waiting for. So that's my way to stay 1% better.
I love it. Well said. So where can everybody check you out? You plug the podcast, plug it again, all that good stuff.
Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you all so much.
What's new coming up for you for the rest of 2023?
Oh, man. All right. Let me plug my stuff. So you can find me on social media at Hey, Hey, Ann O'Neill. So ANNEONEIL. Hey, Ann O'Neill. I'm doing Twitter and Instagram and LinkedIn, and I haven't started on TikTok yet. I'm still thinking about it.
What are you waiting for?
Yes. Well, I'm in cybersecurity, so there's a lot of things about cybersecurity with TikTok and it running by China. So that's the only thing I've been kind of waiting to see.
So now I can't even post that clip because, I guarantee you, this shadow
exactly. I don't know. You never know. But anyway, that's the
thing back
there.
In the shadow realm, like Mortal Kombat. That's what's going to happen.
I'm just doing reels. We'll just do reels. And then my website is annoneal.co. So you can find me there. The podcast is Get Busy Living. And you can find that on so many different things. And what's up next for me? You know, I really took the last month or so I took a little pause on the podcast just to kind of get my bearings, because things evolve and you want to keep evolving with them. And I want to make sure this next, season or, interviews that I have are, hitting on more cylinders for me, because who I was a year and a half ago is different than who's sitting here today on the interview, and the same with, the guests. So I'm looking at evolving that a little bit, and I really wrote out my values for 2023. I guess I can speak to that, and one of them is called stretch. So a lot of we've talked a lot about growth mindset, but stretch is something maybe that I still want to grow, but it might just be right outside what I'm used to doing or the ways that I'm used to growing. So we'll see, because for me, writing right now is like, you got to sit. You got to stay focused, and you got to do it just like you're doing a workout. It's like a routine. And so that would probably be one of them that I'm focused on, and I'm going to stretch myself because it is such a discipline to get the words on the paper and keep going at it. So, that's one of those things for 2023, but you never know. I'm up for anything collaboration. I'd love to do more video work. That's one of the things I'm looking to get back into.
In studio, I would
yeah,
like to see that too.
I used to do TV color commentating for Fox Sports and women's basketball games and things like that.
I couldn't tell by the way that your tone and delivery is.
Oh.
I picked all that up. I read that right when you started talking. I'm like, you've been on TV. I can tell. You can tell. The people that have been on TV, they have certain characteristics.
So I'd love to like see if there's opportunities there and see what I can do. So that takes a little bit of connecting and collaborating and all that kind of good work. But you never know. So if anybody has a hookup, let me know. And they see this video, let me know.
You got the hookups. You're over in Miami. Come on now.
Oh my
South
gosh.
Beach, yeah?
Yeah, that's right. That is true. Hey, like I said just a minute ago about the 1%, you never know who I might meet in the gym. So I just got to keep talking like that. So you never know, right?
Never know, man.
Never know who you might meet on a podcast. Everything's possible. Yeah, let's do it. I'm up for all the good conversations.
Pat Riley.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yes. All the above with Miami Heat guys. So yes. And I know LeBron comes here, even though he's in LA, but my favorite. So yeah.
Was LeBron your favorite?
He's one of my top favorites. Yes. I loved watching him.
Oh boy.
Oh no.
We go.
Oh no. And I know that response is always like, you love him or you don't love him. So Rory, who's your favorite?
It's Jordan. Come on now, Jordan. We in that Jordan.
Oh,
era.
well,
We're
Jordan.
Last Dance.
Oh yeah, Jordan shoes all the way. I mean, I have my Jordans on right now, so I do love Jordan and the Last Dance.
You have your
that was so good.
Jordans on a podcast?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
Come on now.
I actually
you break the news now. Come on now.
Yes. I always wear sneakers. I mean, if we're doing Zoom, I try to look nice up top, but I have sneakers on. I'm a sneakerhead from way back in the day. I feel like it's, again, some kind of mental thing where you're ready to go. Like you're playing basketball or getting in the gym. You're just as like that, whether you're talking on a podcast or not.
What Jordans do you have on right now?
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'll have to double check. I'm not that big of a sneakerhead where I know all the names, but I do know they have to look cute and that they have to be Jordans. So there you go.
Okay. Well, Ann, I appreciate you.
Oh my gosh.
Peace,
I had
prosperity
thank you so much, Rory. This was incredible, and congratulations on all of your success. I've loved seeing all these different guests from all different walks of life come on your podcast. So it's an honor to be here, and I'm so grateful to get to know you.
No, absolutely.
All right.
We'll do it again down the road. Trust me.
I love it.